to keep thinking about it. You keep.
Okay, so this is,
Welcome to the 24th meeting of the 23rd meeting. Sorry, tomorrow's the 24th. Welcome to the September 23rd meeting of the Tompkins County Legislators Expanded Budget and Capital and Personnel Committee meeting. We have a nice lineup of presentations tonight, and we're going to start with our district attorney, Matt Van Houten. Matt, welcome.
Thanks, Mike.
When you're ready.
Great, I'm ready. So this is I think my 8th budget presentation since I've been the DA, and I think in general I've had a reputation of being a straight shooter and a team player. So I'm just going to cut to the chase in this year's presentation. I think first we need to recognize that we have a very valuable partnership. Tompkins County has a very valuable partnership with the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services. They provide us with significant grant funding to the DA's office, to the sheriff's office, to other criminal justice related departments within the county. And I think we have to be aware of the relationship that we have with DCJS as we think about the budget and as we think about my budget, which I'll get to that in a minute. So thanks, Corey, for putting my PowerPoint up on the screen. We are a small department. We have at full staff 9 attorneys, and they are dedicated professionals. They are people that are not doing it for the money. They are hardworking attorneys who are dedicated to public service. And I think across New York State and across the country, we are recognized as a leader in progressive prosecution. We're recognized as a county that is doing it right with our alternatives to incarceration, with the jail population, and specifically with regard to our compliance with the discovery reform. We have been exemplary in how we provide discovery to defense attorneys. That's part of the discovery reform that happened in 2020. We have a system that works very well. I've talked with other attorneys who handle cases in other counties, and we are head and shoulders above those counties. And this has been at no expense to the county because of the discovery grant funding that we've gotten from DCJS. So just talking about, I'm going to keep going back to DCJS as we get to the more controversial part of my presentation tonight. So there's a couple of realities here. One is that we're dramatically losing ground in our ability to retain and to recruit attorneys for my office. Right now we have 6 attorneys, plus we're supposed to have a staff of 9, including myself. We have 1 recent law school graduate who will hopefully pass the bar this fall and be an attorney in January. But we are short-staffed, and we have been short-staffed for the entire year. And there is no sign of being full staff. And that is because we cannot compete with the assigned counsel rates. And that's just the reality of our situation. So we can move on to the next slide. I've talked about this in the past, that we are below the average staffing level for New York State. And I did some specific calculations to have some specific numbers for that calculation as I presented tonight. The national standard, I've always thought the national standard was 1 attorney prosecutor per 10,000 county residents. And that's kind of a rough number. We would have 10 attorneys, so we'd be 1 short. Well, after taking the populations of every county, and I have a book that has all the counties, the 62 counties, how many ADAs they have for each county compared to their population. There are only 6 counties in New York State that are that have lower attorneys per capita ratios than we do. So we essentially, at this point, if you're looking at kind of a national comparison, we're the Mississippi of New York State when it comes to staffing DA's offices. And I don't think we should be proud of that. The numbers, so statewide, the average is 5,801 residents per attorney. And that's counting the 5 downstate New York City counties. You take those out of the equation, the average is 8447. So we should have 1 attorney for 8447 residents. And if you do the math there, that means we would have 12.4 prosecutors in my office. I only say this, I'm not saying this because I'm asking for more staff. I'm saying this because we have to recognize that the people in my office are underpaid already, and we're asking them to do more for nothing. And that's not okay. And the budget piece of that is that if we had those, let's say we had 3 more attorneys to get us up to 12, we'll just round down, not 12.4, we'll round down to 12. If we had 3 entry-level attorneys that filled up those 12 spots, that's another $336,000 that the county would be paying for the DA's office for meeting our basic obligations. And if one of those was an ADA level 3, let's say, that's $360,000 that the county is not paying, and I'm not asking the county to pay. But we need to understand that as we are talking about what I am asking the county to do. So every county department was asked to cut 5% and put in the 2 budgets, one minus 5%, and the only way to do that with our budget would be to cut an attorney position because we are so bare bones to begin with. And I'll step back for a second. In 2021, when COVID happened, we sacrificed our administrative assistant level 1 position, the receptionist. We never asked for her back. And we've gone on making do, having the paralegals answer the phone and man the front desk. And that was, I think, recognized at the time, but it's been forgotten now. And that would have been our 5%. I think if we were, we had gotten her back, that would have been our 5%. But now our 5% is taking away an attorney. So now we're down to 8 attorneys on the books when it should be 12. So giving that back, to me, that's not really anything that I'm going to be happy about. And thankfully, that's in the recommended budget, but that's nothing. And so what I'm asking for is I can talk. That's the next slide is the reinstating the 9th attorney position. That's a non-issue. We can go on to the next thing because that's really the most controversial thing. So I talked about DCJS a couple times. So DCJS also has been giving us a grant for as long as I've been DA. It's called the Aid to Prosecution Grant. And for the first 6 years that I was DA, it was about $41,000. And we simply contributed that money towards the deputy district attorney's salary every year. Last year, in recognition of the governor's efforts to help out public safety, to help out DA's offices, the Aid to Prosecution Grant went up to $181,000. And this year, going into 2025, the Aid to Prosecution Grant went up to $207,800. So that grant, it's literally called the Aid to Prosecution Grant because it's supposed to be to help us do a better job in prosecuting cases. And what I proposed to use it for was to have a stipend so that we could have a prosecutor present at the cap arraignments, the centralized arraignment part of the county court that's held at the jail. It's held at 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. Twice a day, and that is staffed by a judge, one of the town judges. It's staffed by an assigned counsel attorney, and that assigned counsel attorney gets a $350 stipend per appearance. So if they go at 8 a.m., they get $350. They go at 8 p.m., they get $350. They could also be on call in the Ithaca City Court to take arraignments, and they get paid $1,500 a week for that being on call, whether they get called or not. I've proposed to have an ADA physically present at the cap at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. for a daily stipend of $350. So that's one stipend for the morning and the evening sessions. And that I would propose would come out of the $207,000 aid to prosecution grant. And that cost for 365 days at $360 or $350 a day is $127,000, just under $128,000. We take the rest of the aid to prosecution grant and put it towards the deputy DA position. So I like analogies. I think there's a good one for this situation because I proposed to use that aid to prosecution grant for improving our ability to serve the county, our office's ability to serve the county, and that was not recommended by the county administrator. The county administrator is recommending just rolling that back into the county coffers. And you can slice it however you want to describe it, but that to me is like, I'm a little kid and my grandma gives me $100 for my college fund. And my mom takes that money and uses it to pay the cable bill. Hypothetically, that benefits me because it's going towards our household expenses, but it's not going to my college fund. So in this case, Governor Hochul and DCJS is the grandma, and the mom who took my college money is the county administrator. Sorry, Lisa, but right? It is what it is. And I can't use that money for my college fund. And I don't know if grandma is going to give me that money next year. And if I was grandma, I wouldn't give me that money next year. And there's no guarantee if we don't use the aid to prosecution grant for that purpose that we're going to get it next year. So my belief is that that is a short-sighted and incorrect use of that grant. And I can't accept it. And so that's the financial piece of it, and the grant piece of it is one thing. But there's a very important reason for us to be at the cap arraignments, and that is something that is a deficiency in our current justice system. Not having an ADA at the cap arraignment. They did a study back in 2018. And Julia Hughes, who was the council administrator, was on a panel of many people from across the state. And that, in 2018, the recommendation, the name of it's New York State Bar Association Town and Village Justice Courts Report, update regarding counsel at first appearance, training and education, and centralization. Their recommendation was that there should be physically present a prosecutor at cap arraignments. That's the best practices. And there are many counties across New York State, mostly upstate because that's where we have cap, that have a prosecutor physically present at the cap arraignments, and they are paid a stipend. That's what I'm asking for us to do in Tompkins County, to catch up with the best practices. And there are many reasons to do that directly relate to public safety. That's where bail recommendations are made. Sometimes we get a phone call from the police, sometimes the judge gives us a call, sometimes we don't get any call or any input. And there's been a couple of cases in the last 30 days that I can point to, just anecdotally, where if I had gotten a phone call, I knew of a case that was happening. If I had gotten a phone call, in one case, I would have asked the judge to release the person on his own recognizance because I knew things about the case that the judge didn't know. Based on talking to the police, I thought that the charges, the person was overcharged. And I never got a phone call. I didn't know who the judge was to even call for cap, but that person went to jail on $5,000 bail. Thankfully, he was able to post it fast, but that wouldn't have happened if we had somebody physically present. But there's another case that I know of in the last few weeks where someone was charged with having 2 illegal handguns. These are violent felonies. It happens to be somebody, and I'm not going to give too much information because I don't want to prejudice anyone, but it's someone who has political connections. And they got our award where 99% of people would have had some form of bail set on them. But that's a simple first reason. There are so many things that happen at CAP that are detail-oriented. Orders of protection are issued, and those are detail-oriented. If the judge doesn't get it right, based on the victim's needs, it's very difficult to catch up and fix it. When there is a felony charged, the judge schedules a felony preliminary hearing, which by law has to happen within 120 hours of the person's arrest, 120 or 144 hours, which if you do the math, that's 5 or 6 days. Lately, judges have been all over the map. Sometimes they set the preliminary hearing for the next day, which is virtually impossible to subpoena witnesses to. We don't even get the file until sometimes 2 or 3 days later from the police agency. We would have it if we had someone physically present at the CAP. But there are many cases where someone is remanded to jail because they have 2 felony convictions. It's mandatory. The judge doesn't have any discretion, but it's a case that we know we would not present evidence. We don't want to keep that person in jail. So in that situation, I would ask the judge, set the prelim for the next day so we can get the person out of jail. When it's a serious case that we need to subpoena witnesses and get the evidence and be prepared, I would ask the judge to give us the 5 days so we can do those things that we're entitled to do that need to happen to meet our burden of proof. Speedy trial starts on the day of arraignment. So that's when our clock starts, and we often don't see the paperwork. It's just very inconsistent what happens at CAP, and we would be able to regularize it so that we were there and have all the paperwork, have a voice, know what's happening, and address procedural issues that are going unaddressed, sometimes taking a lot of effort to fix. So I've stuck you on that slide for a while, Corey, but I guess we can go to the next one. So the point of this is that what I'm asking for is 100% grant funded if we're allowed to use the aid to prosecution grant for what it's supposed to be used for. And this would be a step towards leveling the playing field in terms of compensation. It would mean that the ADAs would have the ability to make more money by doing these CAP arraignments once or twice a week. They could do it, if they did it once a week, they could make an extra $18,000 a year, give or take, which is a significant amount of money for people, especially an entry-level attorney. Our entry-level attorneys are making $76,000 a year. And if they were to go out, an entry-level attorney were to go out and bill 20 hours a week on the assigned counsel roster at $158 an hour, that's $164,000 a year they can gross. If they bill 30 hours a week on assigned counsel, that's $246,000, 480 a week. We're not competing with that. We can't compete with that. So the leveling of the playing field is just a step. It's a small step towards recognizing that these individuals who are working in my office are working because they want to do the right thing. They want to be a public servant. They're not doing it for the money. But we lost somebody recently. We lost one of our ADAs because she couldn't afford, she has 2 kids who are playing hockey. Shauna's maybe online, so she can empathize, but in Skinny Atlas, and she's driving all over the place and needs to make more money as they approach college age. And she loved being an ADA, but she couldn't do it anymore. So that's the reality of our situation. Go to the next. I was told I had 60 minutes, 70 minutes. Is that right?
That's incorrect.
I'm almost done. This is a priority for the state. The governor is making her priorities known by funding, providing more funding to public safety. So we need to recognize that, county. And one other thing I'll say about this grant funding is that the assigned counsel attorneys get paid their stipend. County's not trying to take that money away. Imagine if the shoe was on the other foot, that the DA's office got a stipend, but the assigned counsel, the public, the indigent defense, the county administrator recommended that the indigent defense did not get their grant money. Imagine how that would go over. It wouldn't. So, you know, as we're talking about parity between these organizations, you think about the analogy with the grandma. That's like giving the sibling $100, and that goes into their college fund, but mine's going to the cable bill. We put a lot of effort into making our local system good. Our jail population is low, probably the lowest in the state. You know, these are our values that we're proud of, but we've got to put the money where the mouth is, at least with the prosecution office. We've typically been looked at as the bad guys, but we're trying to do the right thing for the community, and we have been doing the right thing for the community, but we're hitting a tipping point where we can't keep people in the office and we can't do our jobs. And if we lose another person, it will be a real crisis. I mean, it's probably a crisis now. We just have been scrambling around with chickens with their heads cut off to be in every court that we need to be in, being short-staffed. When we keep the jail population low, that is a savings to the county. And nobody's really talked about that consistently over the years, but when our jail population was in the 80s or higher, when we're boarding people out, that cost the county a lot of money. And keeping our jail population in the 60s like it is now and has been for many months, that is a savings to the county. And that's something that we have done consistently because I would say it couldn't be done without the DA's office being a wholehearted partner in our county's philosophy of diverting people from jail and embracing alternatives to incarceration. And I've talked about the fact that we can't do that. That it takes more time for the attorneys than just simply sentencing somebody to jail. So I don't know where I am in time, but I am not the kind of attorney that will keep talking as long as people let me. So
Well,
I'm
thank
happy
you
to
very
take
much.
questions.
Anything else, any final words before we go on to questions, Matt? Thank you. So I understand that from your presentation, you feel you need more money.
Well, I would love more money. I just want the money that's allocated to us.
Before I start taking other questions, this one's on my mind. Lisa, Matt is saying that this grant to us from the state isn't going to him. Is that the case?
It's going to the county's cable bill. No, it's the funding in the past has gone to, for salary increases in the DA's office, the upgrades of ADA positions, and the difference in funding from 2024 to 2025 went into the upgrade of, or to create the second deputy DA position, and the differential between that person's salary, previous salary, and the deputy DA position salary. So it is going into the DA's budget. In 2024, part of that funding did go to offset salaries in the DA's budget, but not all of it. A portion of it did.
Well, I'm sorry, but some of that was true, but not all of that was true. It has never gone to increases in the salaries of the DA's office attorneys until this year, when it related to the creation of the second deputy position. That's the only time that it has ever gone towards any increase in the DA's office salaries. It has always gone just straight into the coffers, whether you say it's paying the cable bill or paying other parts of the DA's office budget. It's money that went to the savings of the county. It has never gone to increases in salaries until this specific year, where I created a second deputy position that was a resolution earlier this year. That's the only time that it's gone.
I disagree. And I don't think that that's true.
Let's see if we can't get that straightened out offline. Let's go to questions. Who had their hand first?
I'm sorry, but.
Rich?
Yeah, Matt, I guess the focus on whether the grant money is going to one place or another, you've got a budget here, I'm looking at it in the $2 million something. We're funding lots of things directly from county budget, so it seems like it's fungible. I don't understand why you're treating that as totally separate. It's part of a larger budget, and the money's going to your department from one source or another. So I guess I don't understand the focus there. I think it's more productive to look at what's your current situation, which you spoke to, and it sounds like you feel you need more support. I'm curious, we made a budget change mid-year in your department, and I was hoping you'd be speaking to that a little bit on whether that was successful, because we changed salaries, I believe, and titles to allow you to give an increase to at least one of your attorneys. And I'd like to know what happened there. And also the stipend, we are in a very tough budget year. I get the rationale for the cap court stipend. I think it does make sense to have the district attorney there at 8 and 8. But could we do it at a lower number? We are really stretched. So we're struggling in all sorts of different directions. I think, from your presentation, it sounded like you were saying we are anti-district attorney, and I don't think that's the case at all. I think we've tried to support your department, and we want to.
Why don't we let Matt respond?
Yeah.
So let me, the history of that aid to prosecution grant. Until last fiscal year, it was $40,800 every year until last year. Last year, it went up to $181,000, and that all the extra money over and above the $40,000 went into the cable bill. That's the first time that it's been that high. Then it went up to $207. And as I'm working with other DAs across the state and seeing what they're doing and what they're able to do with their aid to prosecution funds, grants, and looking at the best practices about the cap court and whether we should be there or not, what I'm asking for is basically, think about it as last year I just donated those grant funds back to the county, but this year I'm asking just to use them, what they've been earmarked for, what they've been granted for. And we did create the second deputy position. I had someone in mind to fill it. She filled it. That's working out great. And right around that same time, I lost one of my attorneys, an experienced attorney, so that made us more short-staffed. So, that's, I think, answering your question.
Yeah, I'm still confused because the recommended budget seems to be $121,000 more than last year. So we're paying more money for the district attorney.
That's
Or is that not true?
That $121,000 is giving us back the ninth attorney that was taken out in the 5% cut.
I've got more hands here. Rich, can I move on?
Yeah.
I think Lee was next.
Just a couple of questions, kind of along the same lines. I'm assuming, I'm looking at page 92 under the revenues that have increased from modified budget 24 to the fiscal year 25. And I'm assuming that increase in other public safety revenue reflects the projection of the aid to prosecution grant for next year. Would that be the difference?
That would be the difference. We get really 3 different aid to prosecution grants every year. One of them is to supplement part of the DA's salary, my salary, and every county gets that because they're all regulated by the state and to go along with the judges' salaries. So that's $70,000. We get about $250,000 from the county as the discovery grant, and that is mostly goes to reimburse the county for additional positions that were created to comply with discovery reform back in 2020. But that's when I said that's at no expense to the county because they give us, they say, what were your additional expenses? And we show them and they give us that grant. So that's part of the revenue. And then the aid to prosecution is the third grant that we get every year. And last year it jumped up quite a bit. And then this year it jumped up even more.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me. So it appears that the recommended budget from the administrator reflects the anticipated increase that would be coming in 2025. I'll leave that kind of as an open question. The second question I have, or observation, the year-to-date column, when is that reflective of? Is that when this budget booklet was printed, first of the month?
If you have a paper version, yes, that's true. If you have an online version, it is refreshed
Right.
in real time.
And where I'm going with that is that based on vacancies, is it likely that the regular pay and fringes are going to be significantly underspent this year from what was budgeted? We're not paying anybody overtime. We've got vacancies in positions. Is there some kind of amount of money at the end of the year that you know, the district attorney's budget will be potentially reflecting an underspending of the majority of his budget.
We've had one or two vacancies the entire year for 2024, and I don't anticipate that changing. We also hired someone to fill a vacancy at ADA 1. An ADA 3 position was vacated, and an ADA 1 position was filled. So that's $20,000+ difference per year that will be reflected in the final numbers. But we've had a vacancy the entire year, at least one.
Randy, then Ann?
Yeah, thank you for presenting your stuff. It looks like your revenue from this is going to be about $70,000 more than it was last year, based on the data that we have. I have a few questions. So how many, your budget currently, before the 5% cut, has 9 attorneys?
Including myself.
Right. And so how many do you currently have, including yourself?
So right now, we have one person who is at the ADA 1 level. That's the entry level. And he is actually, he has a practice order from the appellate division, so he can practice, but he's not a full attorney yet. I have 3 ADA level 4, 1 ADA level 5, 2 deputies, and myself. So we have 8 attorney staff, although one of them is not yet an attorney.
Okay. Is it causing you to under-prosecute, or are defendants' cases being delayed, or how is it affecting things?
It's causing us to have to work harder and longer hours. We are not letting things slip through the cracks. We will not do that.
Okay. And then the cap stipend, is it Monday through Friday, or is it Saturday and Sunday as well? Or?
Saturday and Sunday as well.
Okay.
And Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving and every day.
Why is there 2 a day?
So when someone is arrested, let's say they get arrested at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they committed a crime or charged with a crime that requires them to be brought before a judge. At 3 a.m., we've set up the cap so that they will be taken to the jail, and they wait until the 8 a.m. cap arraignment time. If they commit an offense at 3 p.m., they'll go to the jail and wait till the 8 p.m. time slot. There's 2 a day because we want to provide for a system that allows them to have a quick arraignment that doesn't require the police to sit with them like they used to before the cap was started. But we don't want them to sit in jail for 24 hours before they get before a judge. We want them, the maximum they'd have to sit is a few hours waiting for the next cap term.
Is that time state mandated, or is that just a policy that we have in place here?
I think that's how every cap court is structured, whether it's 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. or 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. It's twice a day.
Okay. And judges are there at those times as well?
Yes, and they get paid a stipend.
Okay.
The town judges get paid a stipend to be there.
Okay. You were talking about how you weren't notified sometimes when something's happening, and either from police to sheriff, the clerks, whoever. It sounds like communication's a problem. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, it seems like there's things that you could do that would be a better communication vehicle so that some of these things could be more efficient.
You got some
based on what
ideas.
you're saying, it sounds like there's an issue there.
If you have some ideas, I'm listening. Because, individual police officers make an arrest. It might be from the park police, it might be from the sheriff's office, it might be from IPD. They don't do everything the same way. Sometimes they call me for a bail recommendation. Sometimes they call one of the attorneys in my office. Sometimes they don't call anybody. And we don't know about it. If they don't call us, we don't know about it.
I believe you. But it still seems like you've got a hand in that, right? Everybody in that system has a hand in it, right? And the last thing, are you familiar with the 730 determination?
Sure, of course.
Okay. Do you realize it's cost the county $1.2 million in a year?
I do.
And I was curious, what are your thoughts on that? Or is there some way that it can be communicated to judges that maybe that's not the best option? I mean, that's a lot of money, and I've heard through the Mental Health Services Board that there are some people in that situation well over a year or longer in these state institutions.
That system, in my view, is broken. It doesn't work. It's very inefficient. Anytime anybody asks, whether it's the defense attorney, sometimes it's our office, asks the judge to order that evaluation, it gets ordered. We happen to have been ordering it a lot. Sometimes we don't think that's necessary, but it starts a process that it's not a good process, and obviously there's expenses towards that as well. You know, we don't want to prosecute someone that doesn't understand who the players are, and that's the standard. If they don't know what's happening to them, and they can't understand the charges, they don't know who the judge is, they don't know what their defense attorney does, that's the standard for them to be declared unfit to proceed. So, you know, you can understand why we don't want to prosecute people in that situation, and having a 730 order puts them in a psychiatric facility, often takes a long time to get them into that facility where they sit in our jail in the meantime. But that is a process that is really inefficient and really doesn't work well. Because all they do in the mental institution is coach them so that they can say the right things, so that they understand who the judge is, who the attorneys are, what the charges are about. Then they come back here and they stand trial. And then they might go back to a psychiatric institution, depending on the circumstances.
Are they evaluated by a county person first, or is it a psychiatrist or somebody else before that's presented to the judge as an option? I mean, do we have an opinion on this, or is it just who makes this determination?
So if a judge orders an evaluation, 2 people from Tompkins County Mental Health, psychiatrist or psychiatric professionals, evaluate the person, and they either say they're competent to proceed or they're not, and then the case goes in the direction based on their evaluation. But that happens locally.
Great, thank you, I didn't know that, thank you.
Okay, we've got Ann, then Deborah, then Greg, and let's see if we can move on.
Thank you. Matt, does anybody, I guess maybe you said this for the arraignments, who goes now from your office, and how regularly do you?
Nobody goes. I can't ask somebody from my office to go to the jail at 8 p.m. on Christmas without getting paid. I mean,
Okay.
they work 40 hours a week, and they work way more than 40 hours a week, but they have to go home at some point.
Okay, so they don't go in the evenings, not weekends, holidays?
We don't go at all. We don't
You
go
don't even go to the 8 a.m. one during the week?
We don't go to that.
So it's not attended at all?
No.
And and just to follow up on Rich's question, and not saying that we would be approving this, but just to get more information, would it be something that if we offered less than 350 per time, is that something that would help out and make it feasible for people to go?
Well, I mean, I guess, you know, anything would be helpful. If it's $20, that's kind of a slap in the face, especially when the defense attorney goes in the morning, they get $350. They go in the evening, they get $350. That's $700. We're asking for half of that. So, I mean, I guess, you know, I'd have to know what the counter proposal was. But, you know, you're playing with house money because it's all coming from the aid to prosecution grant.
And just to clarify, if there was a $350 stipend for one of your attorneys to go, wouldn't that be each time? So if they went in the morning and the evening,
They'd be on call for the morning and the evening. If there was arraignments in the morning, they'd go. If they'd go in the evening,
okay.
so it'd be $350 a day.
So it would be $350 a day. Okay, thank you very much.
Deborah?
For that clarification.
Thank you, Mike. So I'm gathering that the Sage of Prosecution grant does not necessarily need to be spent on CAP. It's your discretion or the county's discretion in how they spend it.
That's true. In fact, some other counties have used it literally just to pay bonuses to their attorneys.
Okay, so let me backtrack a little bit. You've said several times this evening that you're down one attorney and you don't anticipate that changing.
Yes.
Okay, so right now you've got 8 out of 9 attorneys. And when you began your presentation, you said that the 5% reduction of $95,807 would cost you an attorney position. Is that correct?
The 5%, if the 5% reduction was what was ordered or approved for my county
Right.
budget, then we would not be able to have that 9th attorney.
You'd have to cut a 9th attorney position, which is currently not filled.
Yes.
The county administrator has recommended an OTR of $121,779 to cover that 9th attorney position. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and that's a position that you don't necessarily anticipate you can fill in any event. So I'm wondering, is there anything that would stop you from using that funding to provide a stipend for attorneys to attend this CAP arraignment process?
Well, this is my 8th year as DA. This is the only year that we have been short-staffed for this long. We have always been a good place to work. People want to work here. This year is the exception to that rule. I have to remain optimistic that we can fill the 9th position, because if we don't, we're really running on fumes. We are running around to different courts and making it happen, but it's not a sustainable long-term solution. That's not answering your question, I know, but I think the answer to not being able to use the money for CAP is because mom says we can't. The county attorney is mom in this analogy.
I understand that that you're pretty chapped about that. That came across loud and clear, thanks.
Greg, then we'll get Veronica's got her hand up, but we really need to move on to another presentation.
Thanks, Matt. I apologize for walking in the midst of your presentation. I just want to point out here that you highlight the state and national standards for prosecutors per capita is about 10,000 residents. And currently with the 9 attorney staffing model, we're at 11,600 and change. But if we're actually operating with 8, we're much higher attorney per, or the ratio is off. So I think trying to maneuver or do anything with that 9th position, like we should focus on hiring that 9th attorney. And so ideally your office would be 10, but with 9, you could make it work.
We can make it work with 9.
You can make it work with 8 because you are, but it's not you're running, full speed on second gear.
Right. Yeah, and looking, maybe you missed this part, but I actually did the math on the numbers for the whole state. And statewide, excluding the downstate counties, the standard is actually 1 prosecutor for 8,400 people.
Got it.
So I have data for all 62 counties, including the New York City counties. It's 5,000 residents per prosecutor.
Okay. So my next question is, who pays the defense attorney the $350 per case stipend?
Well, it comes from a grant. I don't know exactly what grant, but it is grant funding.
Okay, and that's something that passes through us.
I would assume so.
So we've sort of established the fact that if an attorney shows up for CAP, they're going to get paid, right? Is that, because if we're paying the defense attorneys to speak to that, or sorry, if we're paying the defense attorneys to go to do that through the county, right, because they're assigned counsel, the county in fact then is paying for attorneys to show up for CAP. We're just not paying for DAs to show up to CAP.
Paying for both. I'm sorry, we're not paying for the DA, yes.
Got it, okay. And so what is the benefit to the DA to be at the cap arraignment? Is that the right way to say it?
There are many. In terms of bail decisions, there are times when a bail decision is made where we would have, if we had had input, the person would have been released, or conversely, that's one reason. Orders of protection that are very detail-oriented, those are issued at CAP, and we need to advocate sometimes for a victim to get an order of protection where it doesn't happen because we're not there. We may not get copies of the paperwork for several days when we have to present at a felony preliminary hearing, and the judge has technically between 5 and 6 days is what the statute provides for us to be able to prepare for those hearings, and sometimes judges are setting them for the next day or 2 days. Doesn't give us enough time to prepare. There are many reasons. I'm very briefly summarizing that because I did talk about that.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
there are a lot of reasons that it is the best practice for a prosecutor to be present.
And then my last follow-up question. Are there days where there are no cap arraignments held?
Sometimes, but we can't predict that.
Okay. Do you have any sense or trend of, I mean, they happen more days than not?
I would say there is a cap arraignment 19 out of 20 days.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Veronica, wrap us up.
Great. Admittedly, there's no question. I wanted to say in defense of those who've occupied the mom position in your analogy, just for everyone to remember, there's also 14 opinionated aunts and uncles milling about and directing them. So
I like analogies. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for presenting to us and explaining in the systemic context your people's needs. And also thank you to whoever made the schedule for putting DA and assigned counsel back to back. That seems helpful.
Matt, thank you so much for coming to us today and your presentation. It's very clear.
Right. Thanks, Mike. And I guess I didn't mean to come across as so angry, but you don't see me angry too often. So just for whatever that's worth.
I didn't take it as angry. I took it as passionate.
Well, passion's good. I'll take passion. Thank you.
Our next presentation is for our assigned counsel department, and we have Lance Salisbury. Welcome, Lance.
Hello, everyone. It's
Would you like me to share your presentation?
yes, I'm sorry, I was looking, yeah. There's, Corey, I was looking around going, where is she? Yeah, it's a couple of things. You'll see when I go through my department, for some historical reasons, is a bit of an anomaly, particularly in this budget year, which makes us a little different. I think the key points for us in terms of the department is our attorney panel is back at our normal historical levels. We've had added multiple new attorneys in the past 2 years. We've added about 11 attorneys have come on the panel in the last 2 years. So we're back to our historical levels. Some of you may recall the pandemic and immediate post-pandemic, we were down in attorneys for a variety of reasons. Our state grant funding continues at our recent historical levels and has been budgeted, is in place for the future, at least for the next 3 to 5 years. We're set, and it appears as things kind of can calcify in a state budget, we're probably set moving forward. And the other big news is our state 18B reimbursements continue with timely processing payment from the state as we submit those, which is good news. We can hit our next one. And you'll see that this is why I was noting that we're a bit of an anomaly compared to a lot of the other departments in the county. The 5% budget reduction will fortunately not impact our core department activities, the representational activities. That's due to a couple of things. One, a lot of our costs are mandated, but we're able to focus that 5% reduction on office expense lines. And part of the reason for that is half of our department staff are fully funded by state grant monies, have been, with 2 other positions, one of which being mine, are partially funded by partner or state grant funding. It's kind of a historical process. When we looked at expanding our department, we were fortunate. We started to receive state grant money. We really began to receive state grant money from the Office of Indigent Legal Services, who is our state overseer, in about 2016. It was kind of a change. And we were able to use that. We have funded, now 3 of our positions are fully funded. So that's one of the reasons, by the state, that's one of the reasons we're probably a little less impacted by the 5% cut than some of the other departments. It's just a bit of an anomaly that kind of, fortunately for my department, worked out this year compared to other people. I'll open it up to questions in a second, but let me preempt it because I heard the discussion, try to answer a couple of questions. In terms of our cap, all of our cap funding comes through a specific grant from ILS. We were one of the original early originators of providing representation at caps. That was something that began 2014, 2016. And the state decided they needed defense attorneys present. So they put up the money, and we worked it out. We originally, I'm the one who negotiated the $350 in the $1,500. We did that back before there was the 2 caps per session, because we were having attorneys go out at 3 a.m. We've kept that. And the state agreed to that. That's where those numbers came from. We mandate any attorney who's a core member of the panel who does criminal law has to take at least 1 cap session per month. And so we required it, and then we were able to compensate them for doing that. But hopefully that helps kind of fill that out and where those numbers come from. One of the reasons we have an 8 a.m. and an 8 p.m. is the state actually set out a requirement. They don't want anyone sitting when there's a cap court for more than 12 hours in jail, which is good. A lot of the caps, probably a quarter to a third of the caps we get are actually the person is just being held for the issue of an order of protection. And so you don't want somebody who, many of those people are employed. So you want to either issue or not issue the order of protection and then have them go on their way. Is part of why that process came out. The 7:30, you asked about the 7:30. It is a clunky process. The state set out the structure of how that works. I don't think it's over abused here. A couple of reasons why we're high this year or in the recent years. We've had a number of serious cases. I actually handled several of them with murders or serious assault cases with deeply schizophrenic individuals or other similar issues that failed, and it took a long time to kind of work out. What happens with the 7:30 process, they're sent to a state forensic hospital, and especially with felonies, they try to restore them to competency, which means trying to medicate them and work with them, getting to a position where they can come back. A lot of those took a long time, and I think we've had 3 or 4 people that ended up being what we call an NGRI, not guilty due to reason of mental disease or defect, where I think even to Matt's credit, their office recognized that. But it takes a long time to get there, particularly with a murder. You're not going to just say, okay, off you go, and that kind of, so we have had a lot of costs. I think it's hopefully a little unusual, come down. I just had a client come back. She was in Rochester for a year, schizophrenic. She also turned out had an intellectual disability, which made it harder for them to try to restore her because her disability was so severe that it, we're dealing with someone kind of functioning at 10-year-old level, trying to restore them. See, so, I mean, it's a legitimate question. Why are we spending so much? And it's not the best process, but it's try to work through it. I'll leave it there to see if there are any questions on our budget I can answer.
Questions? Lee?
Just to better understand the 730, so the county bears the costs of anybody that's remanded for that statewide holding?
Yes, I understand, yeah. I have to admit, don't track those numbers, see if they're paid out of a different budget line, but yeah, it's paid. And the way it works is if a judge orders it, 2 psychiatrists or psychologists from the county or hired by the county do the evaluation, and if they fail, if it's a felony charge, they go to a state forensic facility. Yeah, but it's paid by the county.
I heard 1.7 million.
I think I've heard that number.
1.2, I think.
1. Yeah.
That's probably a contingency fund type of expense that the county incurs.
Yes, this is, it's under the whole health budget, under mental health, and this is one of the mandate costs where we talked about that has been on the increase, and we are slowly phasing that increase in over 3 years is what we're trying to do. So we've added an additional $300,000 for 2025 to this. But then we are expecting any overage to be paid out of contingency funds.
Veronica, then Deborah?
I just wanted to ask about one of the budget lines in the planning and coordinating legal defense, what do you call it, functional unit. There's a line for other state aid, and 260,000 or so is budgeted, and the year-to-date says negative 13,000. Why is that, and why shouldn't we panic?
I think that's actually, well, a couple of things that go on there. We cannot seek reimbursement. The way our state grants work is we don't get them ahead of time. We have a grant, typically they're a 3 or 5 year grant that allocates us, like our statewide expansion grant that we just renewed this year is 800 and some thousand per year for a period of years. But we go through a reimbursement process. The county has to spend the money, then we have to document it and seek reimbursement. So typically we lag because we seek reimbursement normally by quarter. That's why we tend to lag a bit, and we're a little slower, frankly. This summer, early fall, we have a new grants and training coordinator who's and that's who handles the reimbursements. So we've been working with them, and I frankly encourage them to go a little slower, get it correct, because if we make an error and we send it up, then we spend a couple of months back and forth with the state. So we're there, but it's not an issue of getting the reimbursements. It's just they flow in after the fact, so to speak.
That makes sense. And one other question, I guess, about the 730 process, which I don't fully understand, but is for the resources expended there, is any of it for treatment of the defendant, like for the sake of their health, or is it all for the sake of getting them competent to stand trial or deeming them unable to be restored or whatever it is?
Ideally, and it practically probably changes a little bit with each person, but it's mainly focused on restoring them the competency. I think, I'm not familiar with all the state hospitals. I'm more familiar with Rochester, and they seem to do a good job there. they try to work with them. What happens is they oftentimes they try to medicate them to stabilize them. If somebody's usually arriving, if they're schizophrenic, they're probably not on medication and they're in a state of psychosis. They try to medicate them and stabilize them. Then they do, within that, ideally, they're trying to work with them, diagnose the issues, to some degree lay out a plan, but their mandate is basically stabilize. They have classes with them to try to restore them to competency, to basically explain the issues that create competency, which are kind of explaining charges, what's going on in the legal system. Do you understand that? Oftentimes, I can't speak for every county, but I know here we try to look at and get the medical records and track that and see what we have to try to follow up. But their mandate is to restore. They try within that to deal with and analyze what are their psychiatric issues. They'll evaluate them, so we'll get a pretty clear psychiatric workup. But if that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's go to Deborah, then to Rich.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, Lance.
Hi.
I have one question for you, and then I have a question for Lisa or one of her budget crew. You mentioned that all your CAP grant funding comes through ILS?
Right.
What is ILS?
I'm sorry. The ILS is the acronym for the Office of Indigent Legal Services. It's an independent executive branch agency that they oversee all mandated representation in the state, which is, public defenders, my 18B panels, all of the state, well, except for DCJS, all of the state funding that's mandated by the legislature flows through ILS to us. And the way it works is when they have money, they'll tell us. We get it in a couple different ways, but basically they'll allocate money per county based upon number of cases, population. We'll then submit a proposal on how, they may tell us, okay, you can access this much money under this grant. We'll propose to them how we plan on utilizing that money. We'll go back and forth a bit in terms of, what we're going to do with the money. They then, it goes through an approval process. You guys, the legislature, actually have to approve those grants when they come through initially. The state then has to sign off, but that's kind of a rough overview of how it comes. We don't just get the money. We have to go out and once it's allocated, apply for it and develop a plan, and then we have to spend it according to the plan.
Okay, thank you. And then Lisa, Corey, can you remind me where this mandate target comes from and who pays it?
The mandate for the 730s comes from the whole health, or it's in whole health's budget.
Not 730s. There's,
I'm sorry.
In the budget book, under assigned counsel, it says mandate target, $2,072,257.
Section 4, page 21.
Yes.
So is that money we pay?
Yes.
And that's over and above the fiscal target? Or is the fiscal target
It's separate from the fiscal target because we have no choice but to pay it. So at our April budget retreat, we try our best to calculate any changes in mandate costs that we're going to have to pay no matter what.
Okay, thank you. I keep forgetting about these pesky little mandate targets.
Don't say little.
Yeah, no kidding.
Deborah, I can help a bit understand what those budget lines, particularly the legal defense, which is the criminal budget line, costs, and why you see there's a lot of state aid flowing in there. That's where most of our grant money goes, because that covers not only attorneys' fees, but covers a lot of other support services that we're able to have the state cover, specialized services, caps, and a number of things. And that's why when you look at that, you see that expenses total and then the revenues flowing in. Also, the 18B reimbursement is under that revenue total there. That's where that goes in. Hopefully that helped and didn't just confuse.
It's hard not to be confused with these mandated and grant-funded programs, but you're doing your best, Lance. I'm just a little thick.
If you have, feel free to reach out. I'm trying to be efficient because I know you have a lot to do. And I can, I may explain it better in an email.
Thank you.
Norma, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to make a clarification. So this is actually, shouldn't be titled the way it is. Mandates do not have a target. Mandates are what they are, and we have to pay them. So when we started this out, those numbers are really were a reflection of where we started the process, so that the departments kind of knew where we were. But in fact, there is no such thing as a target mandate. It's a mandate. And it is what it is, so we have to pay it.
Thank you. Rich?
But you're trying to estimate it.
Correct.
Yeah. My question was Schuyler County. I understand what the budget numbers here say, but just, do you have a sense, is this revenue cost positive or negative or break even?
Slightly, it's about break even, maybe slightly by $1,000 positive. What this
But
pay,
in actual practice, is it helping you in terms of, say, running an office? Do you get efficiencies because of this additional service?
we do in kind of two ways. One is we have one of our positions, the administrative assistant position, is paid, that's where much of this salary money is, and it was half-time there, and then we're able to bring them half-time into our office. The other half is paid by the state. So we kind of gain that person, and we have them, we're able to pull them from Schuyler actually sometimes when we want them in Tompkins. We access other people, attorneys on our Schuyler panel, who are like Yates, Steuben County, and so forth on that panel, and we're able to pull them over here sometimes on conflicts. So we are getting some benefits out of there. I think it's basically a break even. Like I said, I think there may be about $1,000 positive to Tompkins, and that's, I think, just goes back to how it was originally negotiated in 2015 or 16.
Thanks.
Deborah, is that an old hand?
Yeah, it's an old hand like the rest of me.
Okay. Any other questions? Veronica?
I guess just because I don't think it was mentioned, can you confirm that of your 6 staff positions, one of them is sort of co-working in the CJC
Correct.
for this coming year?
Well, will be, yeah, yes. We have the data officer position, and the plan is, depending on the decisions made, we have it kind of open right now because the understanding is, and he originally came from our department, that if you make that decision, then it'll be a shared, we'll pay the cost. So that'll be basically a state-funded salary position, but they'll also be doing CJC, and our department is the plan.
Anyone else? Lance, we really appreciate you coming out tonight. That's been helpful to us, and we wish you well.
Thank you. Thanks.
Our next presentation is probation, and we want to welcome certainly Dan Cornell, back again. I want to thank, I think Carla Brackett and Laura Rockhill are with you, is that right? And
Sir.
this is in section 4, page 195 of your book. Whenever you folks are ready, we'll be glad to listen to you.
Thank you very much. I believe our presentation is being put up.
Yes.
Just wanted to go over the maintenance of effort portion of our budget. Currently have no vacant positions. We have 32 full-time employees. 23 of those are in peace officer titles, 1 probation assistant, 2 work project supervisors who oversee our community service program, and 6 support staff. Our workload levels remain consistent with our numbers from 2023. In fact, they've rebounded slightly. I looked at the numbers from January of 2011 through January of this year and today. And our numbers, January of 2011, we had 664 clients. It's progressively gone down to 2018, it dipped below 600. And our low was in 2022 with 401 clients. Today we've rebounded back a little bit to 457, but we're still 200 individuals under supervision, fewer than we were 15 years ago. So the trend is in numbers has definitely gone down, but seems to be stabilizing since COVID. 493 individuals under active supervision, and we have 61 current investigations going on. Our budget impact of a 5% reduction scenario would essentially result in our need to close the day reporting program. Day reporting and community service are our only 2 non-mandated functions that we provide. We'd seen numbers go down in both of those areas during COVID, and they've rebounded slowly. We did reinvigorate the community service program with a pilot that we started in October of 2023 by adding 40 hours of community service to all appropriate misdemeanor cases. I'm sorry, 24 hours to all appropriate misdemeanor cases and 40 hours to felony cases. Those numbers have become much more robust and have recovered from the pandemic. Our numbers have also gone down for day reporting. It was one of those situations where bail reform went into effect January of 2020 and COVID hit in March. It was a chicken and the egg scenario of what was causing the reduced numbers. We did have to shut down day reporting for 5 months in 2020 and then again for 5 months in 2021 due to the impacts of the pandemic. Now we're through the pandemic. The numbers are still about half what they were prior to the pandemic. And I'm trying to ascertain whether that's due to bail reform or it's just due to lower numbers of people in the criminal justice system altogether. I believe it's a little bit of both. With bail reform, there's a ladder, a structured ladder. You're supposed to use the least restrictive, courts are supposed to impose least restrictive conditions to guarantee someone coming back to court. Day reporting is considered the second highest level because it requires someone to do something for multiple hours every single day of the week for the time that they're there. And then electronic monitoring is the only thing we have that's considered a higher rung on the ladder for pretrial. Most of our cases in day reporting are pretrial. So 5% reduction would basically result in our inability to pay for any of the contracted service providers that we currently have, which are Cornell Cooperative Extension, BOCES, prior to their closure, the Alcohol and Drug Council of Tompkins County. The cost of those contracted services currently is $74,083. The loss of the program would result in our inability to assist people in early phases of recovery when they tend to be most vulnerable. A lot of the connections that are made through day reporting are referrals to treatment, both mental health and substance abuse, as well as the services that are offered there on a daily basis, which are cognitive behavioral intervention program with our interactive journaling, some health-related classes, as well as connecting people with both health services that they need as well as support finding employment. We've been speaking about this since budget development. We're in the, again, another pilot phase where we're starting to recommend day reporting for all appropriate sentenced cases, primarily individuals who are unemployed and also have co-occurring substance abuse or mental health issues that they need to be connected with. We could increase the numbers slightly by making everyone do it, but it seems illogical to do that to jeopardize someone's employment if they already have it and would have to go to day reporting, take time off from their job in order to do that for 5 or 10 days at the beginning of the sentence. So we're trying to focus on the people who are unemployed and also have either substance abuse, mental health issues, or both. I think that will reinvigorate the numbers so that they'll be a lot closer to the numbers that we were seeing prior to the pandemic. The next slide, again, just shows the $74,083 that we're asking for a one-time OTR. Our overall budget in 2025 is $3,017,000. We're asking for an overall budget increase of slightly over $100,000. $74,000 of that would be the over-target request. All I have for presentation, if anyone has any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Let's start with Greg, then Lee.
Thanks for coming back.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too. So day reporting, I just want to highlight in here that when you said one time, I got a little confused, but I do see that it's one time with the goal to reevaluate the program for 2026.
That's correct.
In the simplest, plainest way possible, if day reporting didn't exist in 2025 budget year, what does that mean?
Well, it means around, let me see my numbers here. Around 100 individuals who are entering the criminal justice system or at the first phases of potentially entering the criminal justice system, when they're quite needy and vulnerable, would not have the structure that day reporting provides to help them connect with services that are available in the community, as well as the services that are provided at reporting.
And is day reporting, I apologize, I'm trying to get up to speed on some of this stuff. Day reporting is mandated by the court as part of their pre-trial connection to the system?
A lot of our cases are pre-trial clients that are referred directly from the court because they have charges pending, so the courts will send them over to help them stabilize, try to guarantee their return to court by connecting them with things that they need to help them stabilize, whether it be housing, whether it be employment, substance abuse, mental health, those types of things. It's also used quite frequently as a sanction for our drug court programs. So if someone is straying from towing the line in drug court, the drug court judges will send them over. We could also, the services at day reporting are all available to any of our people who are on probation supervision. They don't have to be mandated to go over there to access, say, BOCES classes. We've just recently used pretrial money, grant money, to work with Cornell Cooperative Extension to develop a 12-session mental health overview class, which is just gaining traction. It's been very, very well received by the people that are going through that. We're looking at making that available to just our general population as a class so they can learn about things such as anxiety, how they process information, neurodivergence, death and dying, grief, things of that nature are all impacted by that course.
And so if this would cease to exist, the fear or the consequence would be that there's a potential for these individuals who are sort of pre-trials, working through the process, potentially could not be easily accessible or return for their, mandated court appearances that are upcoming.
It could impact pretrial folks gaining the stability they need in the community in order to return to court.
Okay.
It's definitely a factor. It's also just that access for our other clientele for the programming that's offered there. We try to connect as many people as we can with College Initiative Upstate. One of the prerequisites for that is a GED or high school diploma. We would like to improve those numbers for our people, as education is definitely a way out and a hand up for people who need that to improve their lives.
Thank you.
One of the other things we utilize it for is a lot of
Microphone.
people that are just coming out of rehab, or even, if they did a short stay in jail, and we know that they're at risk of possible overdose, that's when they're at highest risk. So we'll have them report to day reporting. Even if they're not there the full time, that just gives us a way to check in with them every morning and make sure that they're okay.
Get them reconnected with substance abuse treatment.
All right, thanks for the context on color.
Lee, I think you were next.
I caught the 100 people entering the system on an annual basis. How many are you, on average, seeing in the day reporting system? Rough number? I know it's got to vary from time to time.
The numbers have definitely trended down. Like I can go back to 2017. We had 539 people under supervision and approximately 259 people that utilized day reporting. I have the numbers.
No, that's good.
Through current, but
gives me a rough idea.
we have 348 people on average supervision for 2024. We have 104 people that have utilized the program to date. So it's an average of about 13 a month. So we could feasibly add 45 or so between now and the end of the year to reach a number of 150 approximately.
Okay, Rich, then Ann?
Yeah, first I just wanted to make sure I understand the budget line here. What you did, Lisa, is you approved the funding but changed it from target to one time.
That's correct.
So we'll have 1 year to see what's happening. Dan, for you, I'm curious, you mentioned the pandemic but also bail reform. It seems like we've moved away from the pandemic. Are judges' hands tied? I think day reporting makes great, good common sense. But if judges aren't sending people to day reporting, is it because they can't under the new?
Because of the, because of the bail reforms progressive ladder of, they're supposed to use the least restrictive. So the least restrictive form of pretrial release is they're ordered to call in once a week and check in with our probation assistant. The second least restrictive is they have to come and report to the probation assistant once a week. And then it goes up from there. They can increase the number of days, but day reporting and electronic monitoring are the two highest rungs of that progression.
I mean, if judges just can't do it, this sounds like this needs legislative change in Albany.
Well, it would certainly be helpful if it was considered less restrictive than it is. I mean, our program runs from 9 o'clock in the morning to noon. It's 3 hours a day for however many days the courts ask them to go. Sometimes they're not. Most of the people are not sitting there the entire 3 hours. They're getting scheduled for a treatment appointment, and then they sign out, they go to the treatment appointment, they come back. So it's not like they're just sitting there doing nothing like it's a punishment. There's programming throughout the 3 hours, as well as opportunities for people to be referred to services that they need.
But as it sits, we'll have a year to try to see if it can be improved.
Yes, and
Okay.
if the response is anywhere close to what it was with our community service program, I'm confident that we can pretty much almost double the numbers that we're seeing now, which would make it a lot more cost-effective and benefit a lot more people.
Thank you.
And then Veronica?
Thank you. I was thinking when you were talking about the benefits of people going and, less chance they're going to relapse. I used to work at an inpatient drug and alcohol rehab center, and arrange people's aftercare, and I know a lot of reasons, a lot of things that can happen. And you talked about overdose as an issue. I would add in, the chance of reoffending too. I mean, I know you know that, but it just wasn't mentioned, but that's another issue that complicates things. So if my question is, if this is something that's mandated to somebody that, I'm assuming, but I'm going to ask, do you take into account, say that if they have a job, or what are their commitments if they have childcare or some other thing they need to be doing in the community? And I guess I'll ask with that, another question is, do you help them with childcare or transportation or other barriers to them being able to attend this?
We don't do anything with childcare, but they could work with DSS to set that up. I would say that would be a factor that would probably lag behind a court order, that the judges are actually considering that when they're ordering somebody pretrial to go to day reporting. We would be considering that if we were recommending it as part of a sentence or part of their probation conditions. Certainly, I hope I mentioned it before, I apologize if I didn't. We don't want to jeopardize people's employment if they have employment, so we would not be ordering people who have that stability in their lives to do day reporting and make them use vacation time or other accruals or risk losing their job in order to come to day reporting. We would, if they already have that stabilizing factor in their lives, they're probably less likely to need a day reporting type situation than the probation officer or the probation assistant for pretrial would just work closely with them to make sure that they're making their appointments, getting to their appointments for mental health, substance abuse, or any other needs that they have.
And for transportation, we do have bus passes that we can give day reporting participants. If they're not on the bus route, then we would have to work with them and figure something else out. But we would never hold that against anybody. If they legitimately have no way to get down here to get to our program, we'd figure out another way to work with them.
And those bus passes are purchased with pretrial grant money, so they're free to the participants.
And are some of you talked about some educational components and some support things. Are there also, say, groups, some type of groups where they can support each other, or does that happen through this or in some other manner?
So there are classes. I wouldn't necessarily call it a group, because to me, you'll know this from working in substance abuse treatment. I mean, a group tends to need to be a consistent group of people in order for trust to develop and people to share openly about what's going on. And our population—
People are coming and going.
Yes,
okay.
It changes day to day. We may have the same 2 or 3 people in there for 3 or 4 days in a row, and then one of them leaves, another person comes in. It's hard to find that consistency. We try to meet people where they're at and provide them with the class structure that they're ready for. So there may be 5 people in a room, and 2 of them are working on one thing and 3 of them are working on something else, just trying to meet the needs of each individual rather than have it be just a cookie cutter approach.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Veronica?
I have a question, but first to that, anecdotally, I remember going to a reentry theater program, and one of the actors was talking about how they got connected to reentry theater by the director of it at the time coming to day reporting and basically exuberantly badgering her into playing drama games and stuff until she joined. And the end part of the story was she was like, reentry theater is like one of the best things that ever happened to her. My question, which might be dumb, is can you explain the budgetary reason for which I'm assuming it is, for wanting the numbers of people in day reporting up? Like, look, I get the value of day reporting, but why is it that we would want more people in there, not like as opposed to some other supervision option, but as opposed to, I don't know, just not being on probation at all for whatever the many reasons that could be are?
I think there are a lot of benefits to day reporting for the population who is already ordered under supervision, and that would be the population that we would be targeting for an increase. Right now, we've kind of gotten away from recommending that as much as we had in the past, and the pretrial numbers are also not supporting what they used to. Our drug court numbers are down, so less people in drug court, less sanctions. I just think it's been just an attrition over time for a variety of factors. And the program has a lot of benefits. I mean, we're one of the few cognitive behavioral intervention programs in the county through our interactive journaling that's very personalized. There's a series of texts that people can utilize that are really tailored to their specific needs, so they're not spending time working on something that's not appropriate to their criminogenic needs and what they need to do to help themselves rehabilitate or make those choices.
Does the cost of running the day reporting program go up if the number of people attending it go up?
No.
Dan, I wondered, do we still have the bracelet monitoring program? Do we have anybody on that? Or it seems like that used to be quite expensive.
I'm not sure of the costs. Presently, I believe it's less than $5 a day. We do still have it. We can do that for pretrial clients, but again, that's the highest rung of the ladder. If the courts are assessing an individual as highly unlikely of returning to court, they can put them on electronic monitoring. It also has a variety of uses for other offense types, domestic violence offenders, people that we want to know where they are and make sure that they're not going places that they shouldn't be. We use it for our youth population as well. So it's both the criminal court and the family court clients that benefit from the EM.
So it's still an active program?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I just wondered. Other questions? Thank you. It was very clear, and we appreciate this presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see it.
Thank you.
All right, our next presentation is our assessment department. I see Jay Franklin on Zoom, and I think Irene Keogh has just joined us.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry that I couldn't be in chambers tonight, but my son had a soccer game, so I wanted to catch the first half of that. So,
well,
sorry about that.
We appreciate your being a dad.
Well, some nights it's good, and
we won't go any further.
You're being recorded, just to remind you.
it's not anything that I wouldn't say to them already, too.
Whenever you're ready, Jay, go right ahead.
All right, hopefully you can see this. Well, thanks for having me. As you know, it's been a quiet year in assessment. Haven't really been in the news or really done anything, so this should all be new to you. So just jumping right in, you know, what a 5% reduction meant to us. We lost what could be an opening assistant real property appraiser or RPA position that would have been fundable within our target budget, but that's not something that's going to happen. We could do that because of, unfortunately, Irene Keogh is going to be retiring this year in December. Don't worry, she'll come back. I'm not letting her go that quickly, so it's going to be a huge loss having her out of the office, so it's going to be great to be able to transition her out of the office and hopefully over the next year or two be able to write down what she knows and what we do. So when we do all leave, there'll be more of a game plan than, say, when my father left and he said, find me down at the golf course if you have questions. So, along with that, we reduced our travel and training, $6,500. We'll only go to local conferences. Luckily, the New York State Assessors Association has their annual education conference at Cornell, so that saves us traveling and hotel money. We also had to, or we will stop our commercial real estate data sources. We utilize CoStar and Crexi to give us some information on commercial properties. They may have lease, mortgage, contact information. And then for 2025, we were able to reduce our postage by 20,000 because I'm not anticipating any mass assessment changes for the 2025 assessment roll. Most of the changes will just be physical. I think we'll be able to squeak in with 100% level of assessment, but we'll have to see once New York State verifies that. We're very close to being called 100, but I want to see how that goes. On the right side, you know, I sound like a broken record every time I come to you during the budget. I show you our history of the FTEs. When I was hired, we had 19 and a half full-time equivalents in my office. We slowly worked down to 10 when we had a reorganization. And then through all of these tight budget years, we haven't really been able to add staff to get back to where we were. But within our 2025 target budget, we'll have 14.2 FTEs within that. But I also want to say what a 5% budget means that we're going to continue to do. You know, in years past, when our budgets have been cut, we've done more. When the first kind of budget cuts came around in the early 2000s and our staffing went down, we decided to open our office at 8 o'clock as opposed to 8:30. You know, it's one of those things, if mom or dad tell you you can't do something, you're going to put your head down and figure out a way to do it anyways. So we're going to maintain an equitable assessment roll. We're going to still process mail, receive in any real property tax exemptions, and we're going to make sure that those who don't apply actually do. Or if they don't need to apply, we'll still grant the exemption as needed. We're going to take a look at our ag land this year and take a look and verify the active ag land on that parcel. Unfortunately, acreages have changed both for the positive and the negative for a property owner who receives this exemption. So with all of the aerial images we have now, we'll update that. We'll continue to maintain our tax maps. We finally have a GIS tax map supervisor again in our office. Malachi is doing great, stepping right in. We have a lot of backup work to pick up. And, you know, we're all public servants, so we're going to keep doing it. We've done it for 55 years. We're going to keep doing it. Got a couple OTRs here. The first OTR, of course, the first time that I didn't try to recruit for a real property appraiser, and we just went out for an assistant real property appraiser, we found a licensed real property appraiser who applied for the job. Typically, we have a 2-year training period. You know, it takes about a year to learn the value, a year to learn everything else that we do. And this OTR would bring her training period to that 1 year. I couldn't get her up and promoted to a full real property appraiser. Our second OTR here is for a conversion to a new.
Can't hear you.
Frozen.
I don't know whether you can hear us or not, but it's
Computer
must have been the software.
Sorry.
Start that again if you would, please.
Okay, so New York State tried to do a conversion to the next generation CAMA system. You know, we're still using a system that was designed in the mid-90s. very client-specific, doesn't really do a whole lot. They had a contract with Tyler Technologies, got 85% of the way complete, and New York State stopped it. New York State will not tell us why they did it. The contract was well into the 8 figures for a statewide conversion. I heard multiple rumors as to why they did. New York State will not give me an answer as to why they stopped this project. But if we want to go to the next level for our public, give them all of the information that they need so that they know they're equitably assessed, that they're getting all of the exemptions that they're entitled to be able to grab my data at any point and run whatever analysis they want. We need to do a lot better than what New York State's planning on doing in their next generation camera system. It's what we could do with Tyler's enterprise assessment database. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we can get this funded. It's something I've been looking to convert to since 2015. Tyler told me to wait. They're working on something with New York State. I finally got them down to a realistic figure. The figures in here you'll see are about half of what they quoted me 2-3 years ago. So this right here, it's a $360,000 conversion cost. And this, I believe, was funded at $180,000 for this year, but I don't believe it was funded for 2026. Is that correct, Lisa?
We haven't budgeted that far in advance, but yes, so it's recommended that we apply for an LGE grant for the entire cost.
I don't know when the timeframes are for that, so I don't know if the approval of $180,000 would allow me to start the conversion process for the 2026 roll, or if it was, because timing is an issue for me. We file our final roll on July 1, so I would need to convert starting on a July 1, or at least a kind of a May 1 to get the prep in. So we may have to delay this until 2026, depending upon that LGE grant then. But along with the conversion, we also have a maintenance for that software as well. So this is just our yearly subscription. It allows for that public interface. You apply for a senior exemption. You can do it online. We can send you an email saying, hey, you sent in the wrong income tax return. It puts it in that bucket of here's pending work for you to do. This software is going to be able to take probably 12 of our databases that we created to maintain exemptions, maintain assessment change notices, grievances, our appeals. All of these databases will be able to roll into this software, which is key because the people who maintain your databases for my department won't always be there. And we're running into compatibility issues with Microsoft updates. We're running into security reasons with our IT department doing the job they need to do and locking us down, but all of that comes with costs. And finally, here's an additional staff. I was asked back in December, January, what do I need? In all of the past budget years that we've had, we haven't been able to request the staffing that we've needed to be whole. We've been told don't request more than you can fund. And if there's a department that knows the effect of spending on the public, it's my department. We see it all the time. We know what it is. We're never going to ask for more than what we need. And with this, while I would love to sit here and say I need these 4 people, I want to wait. I want to see if our new database is funded, what sort of capability is that going to do? Is that going to take away a lot of our requests for reports and free up some time? is it going to add to us because we have the capability of providing more information to the public? You know, is it going to take more clerical staff so that when we do reval someone's property, we can give them those comparable sales that we used? So I don't know what that new database is going to bring in terms of functionality. I know what it's going to bring in that, but I don't know what it's going to bring in terms of time that it's going to take us to be able to really utilize that. So I would love more people. Quite honestly, I have no place to put them, and I would want to wait, but I'm never going to say no to more people. So that's my presentation. Stop sharing.
Thank you, Jay. We're going to go to questions then. Who's got questions? Rich?
Yeah, on the sheet, it's showing the $180,000, but then it's going into one time and then it's showing as zero. Lisa, is that because you're saying we'd apply for the grant? If we don't get the grant, you'd pay for it out of contingency?
I think that was the plan, yes.
So in either event, you'd get the software, because it didn't make sense to me we would be paying for the maintenance without paying for the software. But pay for it, but hopefully with a grant.
That's accurate. Now, when this budget was put together, we were anticipating that there would be a local government efficiency grant process in the current year, and the state has said that they're not going to do one in 2024. We've since learned they're going to hold off until 2025 for that LGE grant process. So
there won't be money to get out of a grant?
If there is money, we wouldn't know about it until mid-year 2025 when we submitted the application and found out. So it's the same source of grant funds that we received the funding for the Rapid Medical Response Program. So it's that same grant program.
But Jay would want to buy his software before then, I assume?
Yes, that's true.
Okay. And then, Jay, I am curious about the 4 positions. There's a big chunk of money, $349,000. Is that broken down somewhere by the 4 different titles?
Yeah, there would be another assistant director. Back in 2000, we were going to split our department into an internal and field.
No, I understand the titles, the dollar figures for each. Like if the legislature, for instance, decided to approve one of the administrative assistant positions, what kind of dollars would be on that? Is that somewhere?
That's all told about 66, including fringe.
Could you provide?
66,522.
Yeah, could you provide us with the breakdown by the 4 different jobs?
Yeah, I'm sure it's in the budget software somewhere.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Randy?
Yeah, thank you, Jay. So I have a question about the software. So the total cost of the software is $360,000?
Correct, for the conversion.
But you have to purchase it first, so how would it only be $180,000 in 2025?
Well, my hope was to have that conversion cost over a 2-year period. So I had put that in as a multi-year one-time OTR. So it would be $180,000 in 2025, $180,000 in 2026. And then the yearly maintenance fee would start kicking in 2026. That was just a way for to lessen the blow of $360,000 in 1 year. I talked to Tyler and said, hey, since we'll be converting in July, is there a way for us to split that payment into 2 years? And because they want us so much, they were willing to do that.
Okay. So the $98,000 maintenance fee, is that an annual fee?
Correct, yes.
So, but you wouldn't have to pay it in 25, only in 26?
In 26, correct.
We have it on our 25 numbers, so would you get a year, so warranty, so to speak?
Yeah. In the year of the conversion, you wouldn't have to pay since we would start converting July 1 of 2025. And then we wouldn't be fully converted until we filed the final roll July 1 of 26.
Technology has changed a lot. I actually have a friend that lives in the Binghamton area that's an appraiser, and he was showing me how he appraises now and how it's all electronic, even to the point where all the variables between the comparables adjust automatically. I mean, it's incredible. It used to have to go through each line and go, okay, well, this is 100 square feet less, so it's adjustment down. And so he was done with the appraisal, I'd say, in a half an hour, and it was all through cutting and pasting, and of course he has the resources of other appraisers, so it was fascinating. So.
Yeah, those are called automated valuation models. We use them. We used to have a lot more flexibility. We used AEP, Adaptive Estimated Procedure. We still use multiple regression analysis within our office. The real difficult is trying to get the data out of our state database into a format that's usable. Fortunately, with Tyler's product, they have that MRA module built right in. So I'm not trying to account for a multi-house parcel and how that is affected, or yard improvements, your barns, your garages, your porches, and things like that. But I can say his model that he had takes a lot of time to set up in order to be able to create what those adjustments are. So there's a lot of back-end work that you don't see going into that. But yeah, I would love to get to an MRA model. We just got to have the resources to be able to do that.
Thank you.
Jay, so I want to understand here, I think I do, but I wanted you to confirm it. Earlier in the year at Government Operations, when you were being questioned by the public a lot about the new assessments, we talked about these new positions in order to maintain the annual reassessment. And am I hearing you saying that for next year you can do the annual reassessment without these positions?
Well, based upon where our assessments are right now and the sales that are occurring, I'm at about 95.5% of market value. So when you take the assessment divided by the sale price, you're going to get a ratio. If that ratio is 1, your assessments equal that sale price. So right now our assessments are about 95.5%. New York State considers 95% at 100%. When you're looking at it on a math basis, 95% really is 100. So I'm thinking that without any mass changes, we'll be able to maintain that 100% for the 2025 assessment roll. If we were to be able to do that, and we had the conversion to the database, I'm not anticipating us being able to do really any work during that conversion. We have to learn new terminology, new processes, new procedures, and hopefully that'll get us through to 2026. By then, I'll have a better picture of what we'll need from that database, and we'll be able to say, here's that more staff, or here, our staffing level is now more adequate based upon the information that we're able to give the public, and they'll be more satisfied with the results of our revaluations.
I guess that's a yes.
Just a little longer, yes, but.
Thank you, Jay. I don't know if the public will ever be satisfied with assessments, and certainly not with taxes, but we appreciate those efforts. Are there any other questions here? Irene, we don't like hearing about your retirement, but I know it's good for you, but not good for us. But I'm glad that Jay has told us that you're going to stick around some.
For a little bit longer.
Well, you've been great, so thank you.
Thank you.
I've been with Irene for 25 years now. I don't know what I'll do without her. But boy, I can't wait to roast her at her retirement.
She'll be out on the golf course, right? All right. Okay, we've got one more presentation. We are going to take a 10-minute break and come back and talk about county administration.
Please help yourselves to cake in the back. I don't really want to take it home.
It's really good. It is. It's not.
Yeah, that's 2.5.
Lori, get some cake, it'll keep you awake.
But to your point, I think it does make sense to the people that
Okay,
want
we're
to be
back.
involved and
We're
should
back
be
on.
involved, especially in their district, makes a lot of sense.
Do you want me to ask about this? Katrina just asked me, we were talking about a meeting on October 3rd at either 4 or 4:30, and we hadn't decided on that. She needs to know when we're going to start that meeting. Anybody? All the other ones were doing it at 4:30.
Right, somebody did mention something about trying to start it early if possible. That's all I remember.
4:30 going once?
Well, how about 4?
I vote for 4 also.
I work, so I vote for 4:30, but we'll do what the majority wants to do. How many want to do it at 4? One, two.
I'm sorry, this is the EBC voting committee?
Our first voting meeting
On the 3rd.
on the 3rd.
I'm in class, so I cannot attend.
At all?
Attend at
At
all?
4, I had it down for 5:30.
It's 4:30.
4:30.
Oh, they're all 4:30.
We were at 5:30 first, and they got changed.
Okay. Well, if you start at 4, I will miss the first hour of it.
I think that was because we wanted to discuss fund balance.
I think that was part of the discussion, yep.
Yep.
So let's try again. Those in favor of doing 4 o'clock, please raise your hand. Shauna's hand is up, so is Deborah's.
Susan's MIA.
I guess the majority is for 4:30 then.
Yeah, because more
Thank you.
people could
Yeah.
attend.
I'm for whichever has fewer people missing it. So I don't know if anyone has a hard stop on the late end.
We didn't the other night, did we? Kept going.
I
didn't realize there was such a thing.
Oh, in the past, sometimes we've done things like that. All right.
I was wondering, since we're about to start having those voting meetings, when the format for the legislative amendments would be forthcoming.
I was going to suggest that at the beginning of tomorrow night's meeting, that we give some time to administration and particularly Norma to discuss all of that.
Okay.
Does that make sense with folks? And then you can ask questions or make suggestions. Is that all right with you, Deborah?
Yeah, we had a great system the last year or two that Norma provided us with a template.
Yep. It's ready.
And everything was very consistent. She wants to do that again.
It's
I
ready.
think it worked real well.
We've had some questions about what the order that they're looked at.
I'm just letting our budget director run that, so, yes.
So we'll talk about that first thing tomorrow. Then let's go over to Lisa to present for her department. At least I assume she's going to do that.
Yes. Thank you, Mike. All right. All right, so I'm happy to present you with the 2025 County Administration Departmental Budget. I know we all see a lot of each other at every committee and legislature meeting, and our department strives to provide you with ongoing information and analysis to help you make the policy and budget decisions that you make on a regular basis. So I know you're very familiar with the work of our office, though some of our work is more behind the scenes. Here's a brief rundown of the work done by our staff. We provide management and support to the other 25 county departments. We develop the annual budget and facilitate the annual budget process. We work with departments and agencies to develop key performance indicators to monitor the effectiveness of services provided. We're involved not only with the development of the capital budget, but with getting the major capital projects underway, most notably right now, the center of government and the development of an emergency shelter. Through our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, we lead the county's DEI efforts and are working to institutionalize those efforts through policies, procedures, and planning. And our Diversity Officer also serves as the Compliance Officer. And our office oversees the countywide compliance program as well as contract management and risk management. We also coordinate centralized grants management for the county. We're coordinating the implementation of the strategic operations plan. Though each department has their own objectives to fulfill, administration is coordinating and shepherding that overall process. We're responsible for the county's communication efforts and media production, including the streaming of legislature and committee meetings. We maintain and update the county's administrative policies and shepherd that process along. We now house the county's employee health and safety coordinator that came to us from the whole health department. And that position in the last year has spent a lot of time working with others on building safety and security. And in recent years, through the implementation of Reimagining Public Safety, our office has included the Community Justice Center with funding shared with the City of Ithaca, and whose staff operate out of the mental health building on Green Street. In 2024, county administration has 14 full-time equivalents. 2 of those staffers include CJC staff that have been funded thus far with one-time funds for the 3 years of Reimagining Public Safety. In 2025, we're requesting 13 full-time equivalents. That includes an over-target request for the funding of the CJC coordinator, shared 50% with the City of Ithaca, and that assumes that the data analyst position goes under the assigned counsel to be covered with state funding. A 5% funding cut for county administration is equivalent to $99,713. In addition to that, in 2025, county administration is absorbing a portion of the UKG payroll software that we're responsible for overseeing. So like most departments in the budget process, our budget is made up mostly of salary and fringe expenses. We went through and cut any areas of the budget that we could, including association dues, travel and training and program expenses. I also considered cutting a position, but couldn't identify one that wouldn't require us to subcontract for the work that we'd be eliminating. That left the consideration of an across-the-board reduction in hours to arrive at the $99,000 figure. A reduction in hours would significantly impact the work of the department, as I'm not seeing administration's workload decreasing, and many management staff members within administration routinely work over 40 hours per week to keep up with the volume of the work. So this is the last slide, and it summarizes our over-target requests, 4 of which were able to be recommended, 2 were not. So starting with the first one, which was the restoration of the 5% cut affecting staffing hours. And in going through the recommendations for restoration, like some of the other central administration departments, such as finance and county attorney, I felt it was important to maintain the staffing for the overall support and maintenance of the county, and I recommended this within the 2% tax levy increase scenario. I admit up front this is my own department. However, I tried to look at this through a lens of the overall needs of the county as objectively as possible. The second over-target request, which I'd already mentioned, is target funding to support the Community Justice Center's work and the salary of the CJC program director. This request, the over-target request its entirety is based upon the successes of the work and what has been learned over the past several years implementing the joint county-city reimagining public safety initiatives. And it's important to note that this component of the work emphasizes the work with community to address disparities impacting people of color and includes the continuation and advancement of the community dashboard, community healing conversations, youth engagement, and the resource hubs. This budget amount assumes 50% of the salary in fringe for the position, as well as a reduced budget for program expenses than what was requested. It also assumes that the data analyst position continues with ongoing funding under assigned counsel for the maintenance of the CJC dashboard and other work to support the CJC. This funding or recommendation wasn't possible under the 2% levy increase, but was possible under the recommended budget under the tax cap. The third over-target request is a one-time request, noting that the county is planning to implement an employee climate survey in 2025 that has been put off for a few years, and this funding will allow for that work to happen under contract. The last time a full climate survey was administered was in 2028 under a contract, and it provided crucial data on the state of the county's workforce. This is something that has been discussed with WDIC. And
that date again, please.
2018, right?
What did I say?
2028.
Oh, my word. Yes, 2018.
Forward-looking.
Forward-looking, always looking for. So yeah, 2018. So it's been, I'm not even going to try the math. What is it, 6 years? 7 years. It will have been 7 years between surveys. And it's something that we've been discussing quite a bit at WDIC as a need to check in with the climate of our workforce. And then the fourth over-target request that was recommended for target funding was the cost of the GovDelivery software for departmental use to communicate with constituents. And when I say departmental, I mean cross-departmental across the entire county. GovDelivery is an email software that allows the public to subscribe to newsletters directly from our government source. The county currently has 31 newsletters across 18 different departments, and 41,500 people subscribe to the county's newsletters, and on average they're subscribing to 3 different topics each. So this has been, it's proven itself to be a useful and cost-effective way to communicate with stakeholder groups and the wider public since it's been in use since 2021. The last 2 requests weren't recommended for continuation, not a reflection of their value, but due to the constraints we're facing in 2025. One was a one-time request for $100,000 to continue language translation software, and the cost of human translation of critical information on the county's website to continue that. And the final was a one-time request of $18,000 for another informational mass mailer to all county households, notifying them of the services to the county. So that's the summary of administration's budgets and over-target requests for 2025. Happy to answer questions.
Greg.
Thanks, Lisa. For the language access implementation to reduce barriers at 100,000, do we still then have translation services available, or does that stop translation services entirely?
I think what it means is that we would rely on the computer-generated language translation. I'll look back to Dominic for, he can speak to it a bit more, in more detail.
Thanks. Good question. If none of this $100,000 is funded, we'll remove the current language translation system that you can see on the Tompkins County website, and we'd have to go back to like a Google Translate type system. So yeah, they'd be user-generated, but they wouldn't be based on the work that we've been accomplishing over the last 3 years in this program.
So if I may continue with a few follow-up. So all of the translation that we've done to this point
would be
lost?
Would be lost. We'd save the files somewhere, but they wouldn't be used.
Okay. And so the information, like the number that we could have someone call, I think when this first came out, I ran into somebody randomly. I couldn't have a similar language to communicate, and they had a number, and they called, and they got the service that they need. Would that still exist?
Yes.
Okay.
So I can give you a brief overview of how that breaks down. So we have in the target budget regularly $20,000 that supports the county's contracts with Language Line and Empire Interpreting Services. And those are if someone comes in the door and doesn't use English as their primary language and needs support in a department, that gets charged back to administration. Those two services offer slightly different pieces of it, but that is typically in the target budget. This $100,000 supports, this is I think the third or fourth year of this program that would be, is represented in this ask. 70,000 of that 100,000 is for the software and the machine translation at a very high level for our entire website and many other materials and other printed or digital materials. 30,000 is for additional human translation of what we describe as critical public information. So there's a small chance on some very complicated things like health department information or elections that machines might not get the translation perfect. So we have humans do that critical public information above and beyond when the machine can't make sure it's 100% accurate in a health-based type scenario.
Could you spend the 30,000 on the human, the critical need information, and not spend the 70 on the software and translation services? Or do they, is like the 30 an add-on to the 70?
The 30 would be an add-on to the 70. The 70 is the base software that's an industry leader. We've been very lucky to have it in Tompkins County. It's pretty amazing what it's able to do. But that's really the base ask is the 70. In a future year, we could add back the 30 for additional human translation, but the 70 allows us to translate the whole website as anything changes, but it's by machine, which is getting better every year. So it's, you know, it's a lot better today than it was in 2020 when we started translating things for COVID.
And so last question, that 70,000 is an annual fee?
Yes.
So it's the service contract that we pay to provide this accessible service?
That is correct.
Okay, so that doesn't go away ever?
Unfortunately not.
Okay, all right.
And we RFP'd that service this year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. I just want to say this budget online book is really great. You guys have done a really good job with this, and it really provides great information, so thank you for that. So, but that gives me a question, though, on your actual budget. So I'm looking at the administration's budget for this year. Another program expense, it has $2.2 million.
Yeah, we were.
There was a lot of cable bills.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were anticipating that question, so.
If you were to look at the line item or the functional unit at 1230 administration, you'll see that that amount is in it's an R account, so it's a rollover account from the previous year. And that amount is due to the ARPA funds that we end up being the catch-all. And you'll see something similar to this. We're addressing you'll see a change in our budget this year because we have to accommodate for any 2025 expenditures for opioid, ARPA, and Community Recovery Fund because we are the house for all. So you'll see an adjustment for 2025, but you'll also see some of those transactions in 2024. Okay.
And I'm looking at your modified budget for, and your expense totals for 2024 were 2.9 million roughly, but your 2025 with 5% cuts, $1.9 million. Is that because of all those things that happened in 2020? Moore's modified budget? It's a big drop, so I'm trying to understand what you did.
That's exactly right. That's because of the, and what happened was the budget for ARPA was recognized in 2023 and then rolled to 2024. So it just confused. In reality, we should have been budgeting it in 2024, and it just kind of rolled forward. And so we're going to address that for 25.
Okay, thank you, that helps.
Deborah? We can't hear
Thank you, Mike.
There you go.
So I have a couple of questions. First of all, you mentioned that our CEDO also serves as our compliance officer,
Yes,
but we also have a risk and compliance administrator.
yes. So there needs to be someone named as the county's compliance officer. I held that title up until last year when I was deputy county administrator and then as county administrator. And Jesse is the staff person who also works on the compliance program. But those duties were assigned to Charlene as of last year.
Okay. Is there any reason why Jesse couldn't be that person? I'm just curious. I don't understand. Is there some legal requirement that it be?
Not necessarily. It's been a management title. It has been held under previous deputy county administrators. And because of the CEDO title and work with EEO, it seemed to fit under that portfolio.
Okay, thank you. And then one other question. Under the equity and diversity program, there's a professional services line, 54442. The amount budgeted for 2024 was 52.5, and the budget book shows that none had been spent to date. So what's going on with that?
I'm going to have to look into that and get back to you. I can't quite recall.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because you've recommended $45,000 for that budget line in 2025. And if we haven't spent any of it yet in 2024, perhaps we don't need to budget quite that much for 2025. I don't know what those, it's professional services. Yeah, I don't know what that line is supposed to pay for. Maybe you could clarify that.
Yeah, and I can also confirm as to whether we have anything outstanding that hasn't been yet reconciled. I can look into that, sure.
Yeah, that's probable, but thank you.
Let's go to Ann, then Shauna, then Veronica.
Thank you. Two things. First off, I was just wondering if it was possible, I presume it would be Mona, that could give us a summary of what activities or programs, what would not be able to happen with the recommended funding for the CJC? And, okay, if you're prepared to do that now, okay, sure.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
To answer your question, Ann, I think the programming that I'm still waiting to, obviously make it concrete information, but we would be looking at the officer wellness plan would probably take a hit. I think the community resource hubs, we've got quite a few community partners that have been reaching out even within the last week or two, since more public information is coming out about the budget things and how can they be supportive. So partnering with them and then possibly looking at outside resources to help with some of the stuff with the hubs and the community healing. So those will probably be the two that keep moving forward, including the youth engagement.
That they will keep going forward? Yeah, would you mind sending us an email of listing like what would be the difference, like things that might not be able to,
Absolutely.
or some of those might not be able to be
Absolutely.
fully or modified?
Yep, I can send that. I just send it to the whole entire ledge. That's fine.
Yeah, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And then just wanted to mention regarding the translation or the language access services, just adding up the numbers that were given for the page views in the different languages, adding them up to about 375,000 pages that were viewed in the various languages. So I just wanted to say that I know not every click means somebody went there to read that, but to me it's a astoundingly large number and just food for thought of accessibility, to our county. Thank you.
We have Shauna next, then Veronica, then Rich.
Thank you. I just have two questions. The first one is as far as the breakdown of CJC and salary, are we paying for half and then the city is paying for half?
Yes, that's correct. That's something that's been discussed with the city manager, and that's what is intended to be in their 2025 budget.
Okay, and then in regards to the climate study or survey, when was the last time we did a study, and did we follow through with all of the recommendations for that?
Yes, the last study was done in 2018. I believe we did a mini one in 2021, but it was only like 5 questions. And that's, yes. In fact, we had an entire WDIC meeting devoted to the 2018 climate survey and all of the follow-up results that came of that. It was years of work that we spent a lot of time and energy on. And out of that came the Team Jedi, the Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, and many of the initiatives that are now in place. And, sorry, go ahead.
I guess just a comment. Whenever I'm thinking about like a climate survey, I continue to think that after cutting our departments 5%, I honestly can't imagine that there's going to be favorable, anyone that has their department cut by 5% is probably not going to have the resources at this point to do their jobs. And so my assumption would be we're going to hear a lot about that.
I want to pick up Norma's comment.
All I want to do is follow up on Deborah's question about the funding for our CEDO. The legislature approved a $49,500 contingent fund request to cover the HIPAA security and breach rule assessment and updates. So that money is pending to be spent.
And then the other piece of it, Veronica just helped fill in the gaps there. The funding for 2025, $45,000 in professional services is budgeted for the climate survey, a contract with a firm to do a climate survey, and $15,000 in program expense for interns to help with the compilation and results. So that is where the $60,000 OTR rests for 2025. It's a one-time expense.
Now we go to Veronica.
I pass.
And let's go to Rich.
Thanks. The CJC, I'm okay with the number, but I'm curious what your thinking was on taking it out of one time to target. Do we have a contract with the city, and are they committing to whatever they call target?
We had a contract with the city for the 3 years of reimagining, and they are including it in their budget for 2025 in the same way it's going to go through a budget process in the same way that we are. So it's subject to their budgetary.
What was your
process.
thinking in moving it to target?
It has gone through 3 years of one-time funding, and it's been customary that after the third year, it's decided upon what to continue with and what not to. So this is the one area of funding where we are focusing on the community-based services, and so that was my thinking.
Thank you.
Deborah, your hand's still up, or do you want to ask again?
Well, I wanted to follow up on what Norma said.
Go ahead.
Norma, you said that there was 49,000 and change for something to do with HIPAA?
Yes, it's a resolution that was approved for the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. I'm trying to read it. It's a diagnostic assessment and testing of compliance gap analysis.
Oh, boy,
I can't
that
answer
sounds
what that
compelling.
exactly is, but
No, none of us do. And you said that came out of contingent fund?
it did, yeah. And I can tell you it was ID 12557.
No, but that's not my question. My
Okay,
question
just
is,
in
if
case
that
you wanna
was
look
taken
at
out of contingent fund, why would it be charged against this professional service line that I asked about?
So it's budget, it gets moved, it gets transferred from the 1990 account, the contingent fund account, into the department that intends to spend those funds. And I assume that we're working through either a state contract or a bid process to secure a service for this to be done.
So this professional services line is not a target line?
No.
Well, that makes the budget book a little confusing, but thank you.
Is there a response to that, or?
Well, it's just, so when you're looking at, it's a modified budget, so if there's a better resolution mid-year, it's going to modify the budget.
Okay, so, but we're now putting it into the budget for next year as target?
No, the other is the over-target request for the climate survey. The 45,000 and the 15,000, those are part of the over-target request. You see it's there in the OTR line?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So those two I need to combine for the climate survey.
Right, exactly. So it's just coincidental that it looks real similar to what was approved for 2024.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dan Klein.
I think my question just got answered. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Well, thank you very much, Lisa.
Actually, Norma, could you just share the ID number for that resolution one more time?
12557.
So thank you, Mona. Thank you, Norma. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Corey. And been quiet all night. We really appreciate your being here, Lori. Of course, Katrina and Rob. So tomorrow night, folks, we're back again for the last presentation meeting. And we'll talk a little about the voting process for the next week after that, or at the beginning of that. And I will just say that once we get into the voting discussions, you're allowed to make more comments and I suppose speeches, but if we go too long, if anybody goes too long, I'm going to not feel uncomfortable about cautioning you to wind it up. So, anything else tonight? All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you all.